So while Toy Biz was covering the Marvel Universe back in the mid-2000s, Mattel was doing the same thing with characters from DC. And what we're going to see here are the first waves of DC figures from Mattel. It's a 6-inch collectible figure there, as you can see. And Mattel opted to go for the traditional cardboard packaging with clamshell. And these early waves here, the DC Superheroes wave you're seeing there, and some more down here. Also, the figure came with an exclusive comic book. And these were releasing right around the same time as Marvel Legends. I think this first wave you're seeing here came out back around 2004 or so. And then they would go on to produce several more waves of this in different kinds of forms. So we'll just start by taking a look at them here. This is the original wave again, Superheroes, Wave 1. It's Bane and Batman there. And you see Bane, 6-inch figure, as well as your traditional looking Batman. And then here you have Bizarro with a piece of something there in his hand. Some kind of big piece of metal he's going to lug around, I'm sure. There's Darkseid. And down here we have Doomsday, one of the big villains and opponents. Actually, he kills Superman at one point back in the comics, if you remember. Now I switch to purple packaging here. It's another Bizarro, just kind of a different version of him there. This is the Night Shadow Batman in different kind of armor with accessories. Here's a villain, Clayface of Batman, one of the bad guys. And over here is another bad guy, Two-Face. A few waves into the figures, Mattel decides to make a running change with the repackaging and a rebranding of the name. No longer are they DC Superheroes, but now they're called DC Universe. And as you can see, the packaging is changed and looks a lot different with this Penguin figure. It's square and it's a larger clamshell, still with the cardboard back. And then Mattel decides to jettison the comic book. And in lieu of the comic, they introduce a couple concepts, in my opinion, borrowed from Toy Biz and Marvel Legends figures. They introduced the Collect and Connect figure, similar to or piggybacking off of the concept of the Build-A-Figure that Toy Biz was doing in Marvel Legends. And for this Wave 1 Penguin figure you see here, he's from the Collect and Connect wave of Rex Mason, the Element Man. And there's a piece of Mason in the bottom of the package, you just can't see it, that you can collect and connect and build a bigger figure. Here's Wave 3 of Deathstroke. And this is the Solomon Grundy Collect and Connect wave. And the other concept I was referring to is the concept of the Chase figure, which we had not seen previously with the Superheroes wave. But this Deathstroke is a Chase figure. He's unmasked. He's not wearing his traditional orange and blue mask. And so we have Collect and Connect and Chase figures. And we've already seen some of these figures in the later waves with the Dead Man and the Steppenwolf from Wave 11. And DC would go, or Mattel would go on to produce another 11 or 12 more waves of DC Universe, which we're going to see more of them very shortly. So now you're seeing the Marvel Legends and DC Universe figures in the corner here. The display fully reconstructed, or maybe a better word to use here is reassembled. And now that this display has been fully put back together and reassembled, you guys, my viewing audience, can see now why I had to take it apart in the first place in order to show it to you. Because when it's put back together like the way it is now, and this is the way I keep it, that it makes it inaccessible to showing it. There's no room to walk around back there, front to back, back to front. The only way you can get access back there is maybe if it had one of those hover skateboards like Marty McFly had in Back to the Future 2, where I could just hop on the skateboard and just hover over these figures and show them to you. But anything short of that, I'm going to need to get back there, and that means I'm going to need to take it apart. So anyway, getting back to this display, I don't know what it is about this corner of the basement that gets me kind of sentimental or in an introspective or reflective mood. But when I look at these figures and spend some time back here as I have these past days and weeks in order to show this stuff to you, it gets me thinking as a collector and somebody who's very passionate about collecting these figures, that when I was collecting these figures and when they were hitting the retail stores back about the years 2003 until about the end of the decade, 2009 or so, it kind of occurs to me now that that was the golden years of collecting the comic book figures, the Marvel Legends of DC. It really was. And I say that because, once again, there was a lot more brick and mortar retail stores to visit back then that carried these figures, from Toys R Us to Target to Walmart to KB. And the price point I thought was great, the SRP. They were about $10 each when you found them at the retail stores. If you find them at KB, they were like $7 each because they were discounted and they were a little bit less there. And once again, considering what Toys R Us and Mattel were giving us for our $10, us collectors, I thought it was a really, really high quality product. It really was. It was a highly collectible product, a nice detailed 6-inch figure, come with an exclusive comic book, or little pieces of a bigger figure that you could build. And I really enjoyed collecting them. I really enjoyed hunting these figures down, the regulars, the chase figures. And now when you look at the modern landscape of collecting in the climate, and the culture, and what, Hasbro and Mattel, who still makes the DC figures, are giving us today, you're seeing more or less the same 6-inch figure, but now it's in a box and it hangs from a peg, and now the SRP on those are 20, maybe even $25. And if you're talking a multi-pack that has 2 or 3 figures in there, now they're up to like $50 for a 2-pack, or $75 for a 3-pack. So clearly the price point on the SRP has gone up. Has the quality? Not really, in my opinion. I mean, I think it's the same quality, possibly in some instances even lesser. But once again, I thought this was a great time to collect. Was this period right here, about 2003 to about 2009 or 10. And again, I call it the golden years of collecting, the golden age of collecting these figures, because when I reflect back on it now, it really was a great time to pick these figures up. And I think many of you out there might feel the same way as I do. Moving clockwise out of the corner, along the front wall of the basement, takes us back into the familiar 6 o'clock position, which I'm standing at right now. And this display back here with the sports figures, as we had seen previously, has some Star Wars figures lurking among it. You see some there. And it's mostly Legacy Collection figures that we're going to see, as well as some Star Wars box sets and other kind of specialty type Star Wars figures. These are Star Wars Legacy Collection figures that were coming through retail about 2008, 2009. And here in this city, as you can see, Hasbro numbers it BD10, which stands for Build-A-Droid 10. Yes, Hasbro in fact did borrow the award-winning concept of Build-A-Figure from Toy Biz. As you can see here on this one, this city's figure comes with a piece of droid leg there, as you can see. And it's the droid L8, L9, that's his left leg. And you can collect the various different pieces of him to build that figure. So the Build-A-Droid was a concept there. As far as the figure itself goes, it's a pretty cool hologram Darth Sidious. The way he appears when he's transmitted as a hologram to speak. Then from that same wave here is Biker Scout, Rumsleg. Very tough to find figure from that wave was Rumsleg. Here we see Darth Maul and Boba Fett in my collection. There's a shirtless Darth Maul and a classic looking Boba Fett. And over here are some more clones. ARC Trooper here in the blue. And Clone Commander Devis. And the Legacy figures continue on over here with these two. This is a Episode 5 concept art Snowtrooper figure. And the concept art figures were becoming very popular at Star Wars waves in the early to mid-2000s. The sketch art figures, as you can see there, the Snowtrooper, the way he was conceived, but doesn't actually look that way in the film. And next to them is Clone Commander Cody. And he comes with a little mini transmission there. As you can see, the mini hollow transmission of Emperor Palpatine ordering him to execute Order 66. And the final two ones are up here. It's the Dark Trooper and Space Trooper. These two are very tough to find because they came through a Toys R Us exclusive wave of Star Wars Legacy Collection. It was the final wave of Legacy Collection figures issued by Hasbro before they decided to change packaging and theme and such. And they only came through Toys R Us. And these two, as well as many other figures from this wave, were very difficult to find, mostly because the Kennys and Jasons of the world, the diehard Star Wars guys, were going to, hunt them down at Toys R Us and scoop them up. But I managed to find these two from my collection. Next under the corner, we're going to see some G.I. Joe figures. Here's a Snake Eyes figure with a little mini CD in there that it was issued with back in the day. And then coming along the wall, we're going to see some more multi-packs here, where I suspect are Toys R Us exclusives. And these are all Cobra packs, and now the theme is Valor versus Venom. So we'll start with this one here. It's the Cobra Strike Team 6-pack. It's the usual faces. Scrap Iron, Firefly, Storm Shadow, as well as a Night Creeper, Cobra Ellie, Viper, and Cobra Nullifier. Here is a Cobra Infantry Forces 6-pack with a little Peyton Manning dangling from a keychain above that. And down below is a Crimson Guard Force 6-pack. It's Tomax or Zaymont, one of the twins in the middle. He's flanked by 4 Crimson Guards as well as Firefly. When I have people come down in my basement to see my collection, and there's been more than a few over the years, this is the one they all talk about. Of all the different thousands of figures they peruse through my collection, This figure right here, this piece that you're seeing, this is the one they ask me about the most. This is the one they talk about. I guess this sticks with people. Of all the figures they see, this one sticks with them the most. And what you're seeing here, this mechanical looking spider that idly dangles through a couple of hooks here from this shelf. This figure here is the Sentinel figure from the Matrix film, starring Keanu Reeves. And this came out back about 2004, 2005. McFarlane did a Matrix wave of figures back then. And I was a fan of the film. I really dug them, all three of them. But I didn't collect the figures from the line. And so the backstory of how this figure wound up in my collection is through GameStop. It involves GameStop and their generosity and benevolence. And back then when I was working at GameStop, with action figures and toys that we carried at the store, if they didn't sell, the policy was they got marked down. And then once they got marked down, if they didn't sell, they got essentially marked down to a penny, or as we said at the time, they got pennied out and slated for field destroy, which meant we were supposed to literally go out to the dumpster with a hammer, smash it up and throw it into the dumpster so as nobody would have it. And so this figure here, this Sentinel, was in a box and slated for field destroy. And the assistant manager at the time, Jason, he knew I was a collector. So I asked Jason, hey, would you mind if I took this home, put it in my collection? And he knew that I would. And so he allowed me to, and I took it home. And the box it came in, the big display box, it was pretty beat up. It was smashed up, actually. So I decided I'd remove the Sentinel here from the box. And honestly, it took me nearly an hour to work this figure out of the box it came in. Because actually, these tentacles, these mechanical tentacles that you see here, they're quite fragile, hooked up to this, like, spider's head. And so if you just yanked it out of the box, the tentacles would break off, and now it's broken. And I spent darn near an hour just meticulously removing the tentacles from all the different little twist ties that were wrapped up in this box and were intricately, and just being careful and delicate and removing this figure from the package. And then once I got it out, I thought, why don't I just put it right here and hang it? Almost like a petunia in a basket or something, hanging off somebody's eave of their home or garage or something. So yeah, anyway, this Sentinel figure from the Matrix, and the Sentinel, according to the film, is the reason why the world we live in and exist in is not what it seems. But this figure is what everybody who comes and sees my collection, what they talk about. I guess this one sticks with them the most. Continue moving along the basement clockwise here. Let me see on the wall a Cortana figure from Halo 3. It says there it lights up. This was one of the first waves of Halo figures that McFarlane did. You can see it's in the all clamshell package when they first got the license to do Halo figures. And I never did get the Cortana originally from Joyride RC2, so I got it from McFarlane when he made it. And over here on the side of the display, kind of tucked away very snugly, is this 8th Simpson figure I had alluded to earlier. And this figure is Larry Burns from the Simpsons wave. I couldn't fit it on the over there in the corner with the other Simpsons figure, so I put it over here on the side. And it's Larry Burns, who in the TV show, he's a long-lost son of C. Montgomery Burns, voiced by Rodney Dangerfield. And I think I found this figure marked down to like $2 at a Target, so I thought, well, I'll pick it up from my collection since it's in good shape and only $2. Continuing clockwise along the wall, we see these two 6-inch figures at the bottom of this display. The one on the left is Trish from the video game, the Capcom video game, The Devil May Cry, made by a company called Toy-Com. In the early 2000s, back when I found it. Very hard to find because they were very rare back then and highly sought after today, any Devil May Cry figures. And next to her is the Headless Horseman from the Sleepy Hollow film that released back about 1998 or 1999, starring Johnny Depp. Unfortunately, you can see the inside has been yellow due to oxidation. This figure is probably over 20 years old, and it's very common for older action figures to have oxidation occur inside the clamshell where it kind of turns it yellow, unfortunately. But anyway, regarding this Headless Horseman, there was different head sculpts. Here you see the skull head with the alternate head there of Christopher Walken in the package. The more common version had him with the human head, but I found the rarer skull head version. We continue along the wall, and that brings us to this Halo multi-pack. It's the Slayer multi-pack of Halo Master Chiefs from Joyride Studios RC2, the early days of Halo. These are all minifigures inside, 3-inch in scale. And you can see the Master Chiefs are different colors. There's the 2 shades of blue, red, orange, and in the center, stealth camo version. And yeah, RC2 Joyride did a bunch of different little multi-packs with the 3-inch minifigures in there. And this one happened to be the Slayers, the Master Chiefs. Below that one's another G.I. Joe 3-pack. It's Zartan, Cobra Commander, and Zorana. 3 figures exclusive to this multi-pack, G.I. Joe. Moving down display, we see some Star Wars figures here. Kind of tucked away and not exactly in the most accessible spot of my basement. But just to speak to that for a second, as far as the whole setup of my collection goes, both down here in the basement, upstairs in the showrooms, and how I put it together, and the logistics behind putting it together and setting it up, man, I can do a whole other YouTube video on that. I really could, because I have so much to say about that and how I would have done things differently looking back now, 15, 20 years later. But first, I would just like to finish this video. I really would. And to my YouTube viewing audience, once again, thank you so much. If you're as passionate about this stuff as I am, then maybe this video has been somewhat entertaining and enjoyable to watch. But I do have good news for you guys. And the good news is, believe it or not, there's not that many action figures left to show you here in the collection. There really isn't. Which means that the video will eventually be coming to an end, which I lamented earlier in the video. I just want this to end. But on a serious note, it's been a lot of fun, a lot of work. And I just keep shooting video until there is no more collection to shoot. And then that's when I know I've neared the end. And speaking of which, my mom was just asking me some time ago, so how's your YouTube video collection coming? Your project. I said, well, Mom, it's a work in progress like anything else. It's going well. Just keep at it, shooting video and filming. And she said, oh, well, when it's completed up on YouTube, maybe we could have a viewing party here at the house. We'll invite family, friends, have some food. And I said, sure, that'd be a great idea. And then she said, so how long do you think this video is going to be? And I said, well, Mom, it's going to be like watching the Godfather trilogy. All 3 films, back to back to back. That's how long I think this video is going to be. So, yeah, I know. Anyway, getting back to the figures here. These Star Wars figures. What we're seeing here in this display are some Star Wars figures from 2007. They're the Star Wars 30th Saga Legends Commemorative Collection, celebrating 30 years of Star Wars. You see it there in the package, 7707. And they were coming through retail back then. I want to give a preemptive thank you then to Mike Armentrout and Huel Babineau out there, aka Jason and Kenny, for finding me a bunch of these figures. And these figures pretty much run along the same lines as the other Star Wars figures in my collection. It's very Clone Trooper / Sith heavy. So anyway, start taking a look at these figures here. At the top, here's Clone Commander Gree. That's the Kashyyyk Trooper. A couple clones on the end. The Evo Trooper. And this one's the Jump Trooper. And a lot of different Darth Vaders produced. I just kind of collect the ones that catch my eye. This one definitely caught my eye. The Battle Damage Vader. That's very cool. So I had to get it from my collection. There's the Emperor's Shadow Guard. He's like a Royal Guard, only in black instead of red. And a Fan's Choice figure here. Clone Commander Neo. Again, we had seen Fan's Choice figures earlier. And there's a Lava Miner. Four more Star Wars figures down here at the bottom row. And we'll start with this one on the end. This is Darth Revan. You can see it says Toy Fair Fans Choice #1 figure. Yes, back in 2007 when Toy Fair magazine existed, they let their readership vote for which Star Wars figure they wanted to see, and the readership voted for Revan. He's one of the most highly collected figures of all time in Star Wars, and definitely the hardest to find in this wave. Got a little story about him to share with you, as well as the other hard to find figure in this wave that happened to elude my collection. Here's a Darth Vader, only in holographic form. That's the Holo Vader. Just a really cool looking figure. I dig this one. Special kinds of Vaders that we're talking about, the battle damaged one. So I wanted it from my collection because there it is, the Holo Vader. And on the end are a couple of clones, including one that has a poncho on. So now for that Darth Revan story and the figure that never was or that missed my collection. The Darth Revan, once again, was, like I said, was probably the hardest figure to find in the wave, and is really one of the hardest figures to find of all time because he's so highly collected by the Star Wars collecting community out there. But the other hard-to-find figure in that particular wave was a figure by the name of, or character by the name of Darth Malak, a fellow Sith. Like Darth Revan, he was a Sith. And so the Revan and the Malak were the hardest to find in the wave, and so naturally I wanted them from my collection, and Kenny and Jason, luckily, had tracked them down for me. Yes, my hounds had tracked the Revan and the Malak down for me at a Target store, as well as maybe one or two other figures from the wave. They found extras. And so the figures, they didn't buy them because maybe they didn't have the money, so they hid the figures away in the store. We used to call it stashing, where you would just lift up a shelf, maybe in the toile at the bottom, because those shelves are liftable. At least they used to be at Target. You lift it up, you put it under there, you put it down, and you just kind of keep track of which shelf it is. So they informed me, hey, good news, man, we got you covered. We found the Revan and Malak for you there at the Target. Well, great, let's go get them. So we finally We rendezvous, we go get the figures, we identify the shelf, but now, mind you, time has passed. And so people, like employees, have cleaned those floors, and they've put floor cleaner down, you know. So with that said, I identify the shelf, or they identify the shelf for me. I pull the shelf up, and there's the Star Wars figures down on the shelf. I start picking them up. I go to pick up the Malik, and the Malik is stuck to the floor. Because apparently the chemicals, the cleaning chemicals that employees use to clean the floor, they had seeped under the shelf and had gotten the Malik like wet or something. And now the Malik is stuck to the floor. And so like removing it now will require ripping the whole back off the package, so it'll be ruined. So I was able to get all the figures I wanted from that wave of the Darth Revan, just not the Darth Malik. So he eluded me, and still to this day I don't have the Malik, but, you know, oh well. So that's my Darth Revan story. Peel off the wall, that brings this display here. On this display, we're going to see, in these top two rows, original Halo figures. And we had seen a bunch of these previous, the Spartans and the Master Chiefs. These were the original ones back from 2002, 2003 when they first came out, made by Joyride RC2 Studios. And then below those down here are some Batman figures by Mattel. Three Master Chiefs here in the top row. Before I show them to you, and I know I talked about this earlier, but let me touch on it again. The condition-sensitive nature of the intricately designed package that Joyride Studio packaged these figures up in. And for a collector like myself, likes to collect his figures mint package, or as close as mint I can find them, believe me when I tell you this posed a challenge. It was very difficult to find these figures anywhere near mint condition back in the day, because they were so susceptible to damage in transit, but I found some impeccable ones here. Here's a battle damaged Master Chief with a double blaster, and I think this one was a GameStop exclusive, not mistaken. And these two Master Chiefs are from Series 3, Series 4. I think Joyride did about 6 or 7 series of Halo figures. And this Master Chief has him in blue armor with an assault blaster and a fuel rod. And here's a Master Chief in white armor, also with assault rifle. And this one comes packaged up with a flamethrower. And down below are some Halo 2 figures. This one from Series 4 is the ODST, the Orbital Drop Shock Trooper. Just a sweet looking figure there. Here's the Hog from Series 2. Yes, the video game, which is immensely popular today, was maybe the biggest video game in the world back in 2002, 2003 when these came out. And this Hog I'm showing you here can actually seat these little mini Slayer figures here that I showed you earlier. They can actually fit down in this Hog. And incidentally, this was the first thing that JB ever sent me. JB, where you been, buddy? It's been a minute since I plugged you in my video, it seems like. But yeah, JB, I have to remember, this is the first thing you ever sent me, and this would kicked off our long-standing friendship. So thank you so much for this item, which sits in my collection today. Here's a Stealth Arbiter, just another cool-looking figure from the Halo 2. And down below are some seemingly random Batman figures from Mattel. These are not DC Universe or anything like that. These two figures come from a Batman animated wave, the Joker and Robin. It's a very cool looking kind of classic Joker with accessories. And there's the animated wave he's from. And Robin, also from an animated show or wave with the frosted tips. And next to those are a couple villains. And these are more comic book recreations, or the way they resemble in the comics. The Killer Croc and Mr. Freeze. They both come in exclusive comics. And again, they're comic book depiction of the villains, Killer Croc and Mr. Freeze. The top display, I have these two figures. Here's another Master Chief, this time from Halo 2. Looks mostly the same as the original Master Chief from Halo 1, but with slight tweaks to his armor and his look. And he comes with the blaster rifle and SMGs in the package. And below him is a Cylon. This is from the Battlestar Galactica commemorative wave made by same makers Joyride Studios, coming out back in the early to mid-2000s. And they did a few series of this. This one's from Series 1. Well, they did characters from the original Battlestar Galactica TV show that aired back about 1979 or 1980. And they did a couple, and again, Joyride Studios did a couple waves of these. And in the first wave, they did Cylon. And I remember walking into, I think it was Suncoast Video, and finding this figure. Again, nice mint package. And I was a fan of the show. Not a huge fan, but a fan of the show. When I saw him sitting there, I just thought, well, I want to get him for the collection, because that's just a cool-looking Cylon figure there, a recreation from the original Battlestar Galactica. Darting across the basement floor for a quick second to the wall that we had seen previously. I miss showing you this figure, and maybe it's because she's buried in here with some other sports figures, so it's easy to miss her. But this is Mrs. Claus from the McFarlane Twisted Christmas line of figures that were released back in the early mid-2000s. There was like 6 or 7 figures in the line, and Mrs. Claus is one of them. She was the hardest one to find. And if you're wondering, Mrs. Claus, why is it she's a stripper on a pole? Well, that's where the twisted part of it comes in. It's Todd's twisted version of Christmas. Definitely not the more traditional looking sweet Mrs. Claus there in the sticker, but a more adult version of her. If you were to see the Santa Claus from the wave, it looks like a monster was about to kill you. But anyway, she was the toughest one to find in the wave. Walked into the FYE store in my local mall one day, and she was just sitting at a peg, so I picked her up for the collection. There's also an online version of her where she has black bikini on and blonde hair. But the red bikini and dark hair retail version is a much harder one to find and sought after out there.